Good evening, race fans, and welcome to tonight's coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series, live from Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside me the booth tonight is Blake McCandless and Ricky Springer, with Ryan Bauer punching the buttons in the virtual production trailer upstairs. An exciting race tonight here, Blake. All set to get racing here at the place they call Too Tough to Tame for what should be a tricky one for many of the competitors looking to make it to the top level of eNASCAR next year.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Justin. Anytime you come here to Darlington, it's all about how challenging this racetrack can be. Of course, you look out of the surface area, and so much of this track is not available to these drivers, and you're having to run right up against the wall to get all the speed you can out of the trucks that these guys will be wheeling tonight. So Darlington is one of those races that for a lot of drivers, they'll circle as a place that they love to come, but I'll guarantee you, Justin, there are a couple drivers in this field that are probably not wishing they were here in Darlington, South Carolina right now.
Such a very tricky track, to say the very least, here for these competitors tonight here at Darlington as they get ready to race at this 1.366 mile circuit, 2.198 kilometers in Darlington, South Carolina. Qualifying is underway for many of these competitors tonight, but again, it should be an exciting one to see who can come on top, Ricky, with the amount of attrition and the amount of finesse needed to handle these corners.
Oh yeah, and they don't call it the Lady in Black for no reason. This is a difficult course to race on, or at least to turn a lap on, let alone run with a bunch of other cars out here on the track tonight. You're going to see a lot of drivers run right up on that wall tonight, and maybe even some of them get into it, and that's where we could see trouble.
Let's take a look at the Google Earth to see where we're at tonight. Once again, Darlington, South Carolina, opened in 1950, 70 years ago, with turns 1 and 2 having bankings of 25 degrees, turns 3 and 4, 23 degrees, front stretch 3 degrees, 2 degrees of banking as well down the back straight away. These drivers ready to challenge this tough circuit. Remember, the start and finish line used to be where the back straightaway is back until the 1990s, before they switched positions of the pit lane and the start and finish line. And the reason for how tight the current turn 3 and 4 is because of a minnow pond needing to be protected by the landowner and a promise made tightening the radius of that said corner. Now, as many of these competitors get ready for tonight's action, there's a lot of pressure, to say the very least, Blake, for these competitors, because this is the start of the second half of the season.
Well, that's right, Justin. And the one thing about this season, although it's a year-long process for these drivers, it's not lost on these guys that you really only have not too many races. It's not like you have a 20 or 30 week schedule, including a drop. These guys are only going just beyond about 10 racers or so in this season. So even though we are on the second half of the season, it's still a short enough year, Justin, that individual races, those drop weeks, those bad weeks, are enough that they can hurt you in the standings. And of course, everybody hoping that this isn't one of those races for them tonight, as we continue to see those qualifying times coming in. A lot of Nexus cars up at the front of the field. They had the top 3 spots on the board.
Really good qualifying, to say the very least, for them so far. You've seen the weather conditions as well tonight. 100 degrees Fahrenheit track, 81 Fahrenheit mostly cloudy, as well as very windy. But here, Ricky, you see the schedule, and this is going to be a tough slate for the second half of the season. Darlington, Dover, Las Vegas, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Texas, Martinsville, and don't forget about the finale at Phoenix. Remember, you have to be in the top 20 in points to transfer to the Pro Series in the winter.
Yeah, and it's definitely crunch time for these drivers, as some would say, here at the end of the season. And I think something that's going to mix up the points is that Canadian Tire Motorsports Park here coming into the last 5 races of the season. I mean, that's going to shake things up. But right now, what's on the table is Darlington is what's on the table right now for tonight. And I think these guys are going to have to push really hard to get those points here that they're going to need for later on in the season.
Few moments until we make our way towards the grid here, Blake. This is looking to be a very competitive race with several drivers still setting times at the moment. But keep in mind, there is the flexibility of drop weeks. Unofficially, Steven Wilson has that point lead. Ryan Doucette has the official points lead at the time being, Blake.
Yeah, Doucette has been awfully strong all season long. However, you look at his place on the leaderboard right now, he drops to P14. And the one thing that I'm looking at, Justin, that's a bit shocking to me is how many drivers didn't pull a time in qualifying. Right now, we're just gridding up. Qualifying is over, and there are count them, 8 drivers, Justin, that did not pull a time in qualifying.
Let's take a look at the drivers who set those times for tonight's starting grid here on Podium Esports. Will Norton starts the pole tonight, starting alongside his teammate Jake Matheson. That was separated by 18/100ths of a second. Caden Honeycutt, the short track specialist, starts inside the top 3, with Bridal Pratt starting in 4th. Jacob Hall starts 5th, and Steven Wilson starts in P6, coming off an up-and-down run last night in the iRacing World of Outlaws Morning Buildings Late Model World Championship. Donovan Strell starts in 7th with Justin Lisenby in P8. Adam Gilliland and Alan Bowes round out your top 10, Blake.
It'll be Zach Nichols who rose off from 11th. Femi Olot, he'll start in 12th. He was awfully strong the last time we were out at Richmond Raceway. Cody Bias rolls off 13th. The points leader, Ryan Doucette, he rolls off from position number 14. Inside of row number 8 goes to Anthony Burrows, followed by Jarrett Liebert to his outside. Inside of row number 9 is Derek Justice alongside Garrett Maines, who just completed one of his runs in the summer shootout. Roll off from P18. Daniel Roper's in 19th, and Trayton Lapsevich, Justin, will round out the top 20.
Brian Blackford will drive the VRS machine from 21st spot, starting alongside Bobby Dale Earnhardt's legacy esports driver, Boyd Hogan, working his way up to top split tonight. Rounding up the drivers who put in times, Jordy Lopez Jr. and Brian Mercurio. Ryan Kuhn, the first driver in provisionals, Andrew Freinage, Carson Hosevar, Dylan Jones, Mitchell DeYoung crashed in qualifying, Brendan Borlos, Blake Neer, and Casey Tucker round out the 32 truck field tonight from Darlington. To recap once again tonight, the time of day, just past 6:40 p.m. Eastern. 140 laps, 191.24 miles, 307-ish kilometers tonight. Track conditions, 80 degrees air, 111 Fahrenheit for the track. And keep an eye on those mostly cloudy skies, Ricky. That's going to be something many of these drivers will have to adjust for all day.
And the mostly cloudy skies are going to cool down the track just a little bit, but obviously not enough. It's still 111 track temperature out here, which is going to make these trucks extremely loose, especially in the longer runs when these tires start to fall off. So maybe the cloud cover will cool down the track, or maybe it'll just get nothing but hotter throughout the race.
And speaking of tires, Blake, one thing to note, a very important note. It's the first race in Road to Pro Series history using the new tire set limits. Tonight, including the sets on the trucks, 5 is that total.
And that's one dynamic, Justin, that I think in a race like this, where perhaps you're going to see a lot of attrition, a lot of caution flags with how difficult this racetrack is to manage for a lot of these guys, that could come into play. We may see a lot of pit strategy determine the outcome of this race.
Pace car is off. Who will successfully tangle with the lady in black to victory lane, and who will clog dance their way into the Darlington stripes? We're about to find out. Green flag is out. We're underway from Darlington.
This is a nice job here. Will Norton able to pull away as they all get single file pretty much throughout the field. That's a lot of what you're going to see tonight. Very, very difficult here at Darlington to go through turns 1 and 2 side by side. They're all single file, and it looks like Will Norton, who got the pole, is going to be able to lead lap number 1, is again all single file throughout this field.
Indeed, it's a long race here for tonight. And Ricky, if you're any of these drivers, what's going through your head in the short run of this type of event, knowing how difficult it can be to pass?
What's going through your mind this early in a run is just trying to keep your truck clean. These cars are the trucks are so aerodynamically dependent that you even tag the wall a little bit and it could slow you down a couple tenths on a long run or even in the short run. So you want to keep the truck out of the wall. You want to stay out of trouble. It's 140 laps here. You just got to keep it clean for the first 100 and then race it out the last 40.
The two Nexus teammates still 1-2 at the front of the field, by the way, Will Norton and Jake Matheson. And Matheson having a strong campaign so far within the top 5 of official point standings without the drop weeks. Really good performance for many Nexus drivers overall when you think about it, Blake.
Well, it certainly is, and it's something that these Nexus drivers are really trying to get back to. You think about Ryan Doucette and how strong he was winning early on in the season at Rockingham, and Nexus came out with a couple of really fast setups early on in the season, but have struggled the last couple of weeks. It's nice to see them out front in qualifying. They actually put Caden Honeycutt on the pole last week, so they've had the qualifying speed. We'll just see if they have that long run speed that everybody's coveted, but right now it's about a 2-truck breakaway that is about building up to about 5 or 6 truck lengths up there with Will Norton and Jake Matheson.
By the way, you seen moments ago, Brad LaPrade, one of the Vernon Klugerman Esports trucks, was able to take away the 1-2-3 from Nexus. But one of the main things, too, to think about here, with if you're up at the front, it's easier to try and control the truck with the advantage of clean air like Will Norton has compared to, say, the choo-choo train along the top line here.
Yeah, and he's definitely been controlling it, but the aero is such a big deal here, especially when you're behind another truck that is the leader, and it gets just worse and worse as you go throughout the field. The truck could get tight, it could get loose. It's so unpredictable, and with the fine line you have to run at here at the Darlington International Raceway up against that wall, I mean, there's little room for error here, and you might get that Darlington stripe.
Your contact behind Derek Justice between Lapsevich and Roper, able to single file out in that grouping, but the truck on board, it's one that's special to you, Blake. We talked about this in pre-race. It's a throwback to his time in NASCAR Racing 2003, the predecessor to iRacing.
Well, and Justin, that's a scheme that I saw many a times back in the years where he used to run at Blazing Pedals, and it's great to see that he pulled out the old red and black colors here for tonight. He even got the helmet painted as well, not the typical Baskin-Robbins colors we see with Derek Justice. But right now, I think you can ride on board with him, and you really see that it is so difficult to pass. We saw Daniel Roper and Lapsevich get together, but you have to be plenty faster than that truck in front of you to really try and make a move. As we saw just a couple of cars in front, Garrett Maines was able to make his way by Jarrett Liebert. So early on in this run, I think this is a lot what you're going to see. Single file, guys feeling out their trucks, trying not to make mistakes, but then we'll see about lap 15 or 20, we'll really start to see the setup come into play and which teams out here brought a setup that is capable of keeping or maintaining that speed over the long run.
Massive damage, by the way, on Traded Lapsevich. He was one of the trucks we seen moments ago, got a massive hit to the wall a couple laps ago, and is now at least a second or so behind the rest of the pack. Very significant damage for this type of a race, Ricky.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier in the show, is that if you get into the wall, it just kills your straightaway speed here, which is so important at a track like Darlington with the long straightaways, almost an egg-shaped track here that we're running at tonight. And just with that damage, hopefully he can get it fixed down the pit road and his crew can get to work on it, but very unfortunate for Trade.
Up at the front, though, starting to single file still, about 0.4 of a second separate Norton, Matheson, LaPrade, and Honeycutt for the time being. Don't forget Jacob Hall, also a part of one of that grouping of Nexus Esports drivers. He rounds out the top 5.
And now rounding out the top 5, we take a look back. One guy that I'm going to have my eye on is Donovan Strauss up here. He's running in the 7th position. Had a little bit of a struggle week at Richmond after making a mistake, got shuffled back, got caught up in an accident. But otherwise has had a very, very strong campaign here in Road to Pro, and up here representing Horizon up here in the gang. And you know, one thing, Justin, that as I was looking on the leaderboard here, I saw Donovan Strauss, I saw Jordy Lopez, and I was looking on the leaderboard to see, hey, where's Seth DeMerchant? Obviously a big time part of that Horizon group. And he is not on the leaderboard. I talked with him, and he said that his run for Road to Pro, despite being in the top 20 officially in the standings, he has brought an end to his Road to Pro campaign. So right now it's Donovan Strauss who's going to be carrying the weight for this Horizon Racing group.
Tough to hear indeed, especially for the fact that the Merchant has been a contender to potentially be in the Pro Series in the winter for several years. Change for second just moments ago. LaPrade was able to dive last time by into turn 1 by Matheson. They nearly made contact fender to fender.
Yeah, close racing there for the second spot. Is Jake Matheson going to drop into the 3rd position, as you said? But Jake Matheson might be getting used to the oval racing scene here, as this past weekend he was in the 24 Hours of Le Mans and actually came home with the victory in the GTE Ford. And he might just trying to get back into the oval scene here, and hopefully he saves his stuff well. I know he had a lot of practice in that race, but 2 completely different disciplines of racing.
Out of curiosity, Blake, did you run in the 24 hours?
I have not. I've yet to run a 24-hour race on iRacing. The only 24-hour race I've run was on NASCAR Racing 3, and I drove the entire time. But one of these days, I promise you, I'm going to get in on one of these 24-hour races.
Almost forgot about that key moment that many drivers had support of, but Will Norton, he's supporting about a 9/10 of a second lead, has been running away and then some in that machine since the drop of the green flag.
Yeah, he has been taking command of this race, and we just got to hope that he's not burning off his tires. He definitely knows how to save them. We've seen that before in the past, and even in this Road to Pro season here, of how well he can save tires. But we just have to hope that he's used to this Darlington surface and that he is saving those tires enough to where if we do get green flag pit stops here during this race, that he'll be able to stay out front when we get to that point.
Second, third, and fourth ran away from giggles such as this. This is where Jordi Lopez has cycled for the time being. And holding on for biggest mover for the time being, you see that VRS truck, that's Mitchell DeYoung, crashed in qualifying, coming to the end of his first lap, is a +6 from the drop of the green flag already, Blake. And coming off the last win at Richmond.
Well, of course, DeYoung is a guy that, there's trouble in front of him, but somehow they save it. Contact between Brian Blackford and Jordi Lopez almost collected DeYoung right there. You see, this is how tight it can get at Darlington as he's able to squeak on by. A lot of those trucks lost a lot of momentum, but there's a couple of trucks back here with DeYoung that were awfully strong at Richmond Raceway just a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, DeYoung, the race winner as well. But how about Drew Freinage, another driver that started back in 26th and is currently running in the 27th position?
Yep.
He was one that was awfully strong, especially on the long run at Richmond last week, but starting in the back of the field. And Justin, I can attest because the couple of Road to Pro races I ran this season in the top split, despite having what I thought was good long run speed, qualifying and track position, especially here at a track like Darlington where it's so tough to pass, is the name of the game. So it's going to be a long race for guys like DeYoung to try and march their way back to the front, because you can have all that speed, but it takes just a very long time to complete passes here.
In that gaggle, Blackford again scraped the wall on the entrance to turn 1. Keep in mind, the 27 has a significant amount of damage on that green machine. You see the right front has been bobbling down each and every one of the straightaways and now moving out of the way for one of his teammates in Casey Tucker. This is not looking good so far for Blackford.
Yeah, Blackford, definitely the damage is affecting him as we see Ryan Kuhn in that 3 truck going to go to the outside of him, and he is falling like a rock through the field as the 16 truck now to the outside. That damage is affecting him, especially on the right side there. You think the air packs up against the side of that truck from the wall here at Darlington since you run so close, and he just doesn't have that fender there anymore to pack that air.
Oh, trouble at the front of the field. Will Norton, who was the race leader, actually just scraped the wall in 3 and 4. It wasn't anything too detrimental. You can look at the right side of his race truck, and there's not a lot of damage right there, but it has allowed Briar LaPrade, even though Briar has been pretty quick these last couple of laps. Of course, the entry from the new Twitch affiliation with Burton Kligerman Esports is Briar LaPrade. He looks awfully strong, and he has eaten into Norton's lead these last couple of laps, and it looks like LaPrade has a very fast Toyota there, Justin.
Yeah, looking very strong. And by the way, Norton after that telling his fellow competitors, it's driving good, even though it scraped the wall and lost 0.2 of a second in that position. Just looking nice and calm like a cucumber. There's a train of drivers, though, starting to form up behind them, and a battle for position in front of that.
As Caden Honeycutt and Jake Matheson are side by side, and Jake Matheson going to give up the spot there, not trying to battle him too hard, as Caden Honeycutt now going to move up into the 3rd position.
That time able to get the run on Matheson, and there's that gaggle we were just talking about, Blake. That is led by Jacob Hall. No one's made a move. This features Steven Wilson, Donovan Strauss, Lisenby, along with Adam Gillen, along with Alan Bowes, and several other drivers just being patient here. Well, outside of Garrett Main to the back of the line, who's trying to make moves.
Well, Main's definitely trying to make a move right there. He's been side by side probably more than any other driver I've seen early on here in the going. But this is one of those things, Justin, you can see out in front of Jacob Hall, there's about nearly a second and a half between he and Jake Matheson, who runs in the 4th position. But at Darlington, this is pretty typical. This is par for the course here, having a truck that maybe slightly slower than the rest of the field, but it is so difficult to pass. As you see, finally, somebody going to try to make the move. It is Steven Wilson, one of the Total Advantage machines, obviously running a pretty nice throwback scheme right there. He makes easy work of Jacob Hall. As Strauss gets into the wall, that'll check up he and the Valvoline Toyota directly behind him and Lisenby as they continue to move forward. Donovan Strauss just a little bit of right rear damage, but I don't think it's too worse for the wear for that JDR Graphics Toyota. It's really the right front that you have to look for in these trucks, and looks like Strauss is pretty clean in regards to that.
Just a crack to the hood, and now wants to crack his way up one more position to P6. Able to take the bottom side away, but here's the difficult part again. Yes, you want to try to get on the inside, but it's mainly, it seems, Ricky, a lot of times they're set up you're in 1 and 2 entry or 3 and 4 entry with drivers backing off and giving the space with how tight the surface is.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to keep that truck on the bottom because the corners tighten up on exit, and that wall just comes up so fast that if you are the driver on the bottom, as now we see the 51 truck trying it again here in 3 and 4, you almost have to try and give the guy on your outside a slide job maneuver, because if you exit on the bottom, you just cannot get the kind of run that the truck does on the top side.
Indeed, and that's one of the Horizon trucks. And a bit of contact. Hall slides. Can he save it? Yes, he did. Everyone else able to check up in time. What a save by Jacob Hall.
What an incredible save right there. Jacob Hall sliding the tail end backwards, but does a magnificent job of collecting it. And even though there's a little bit of contact there with Donovan Strauss, I think you have to give Strauss some credit there as well. With the truck sliding directly in front of you like that, very easy to just go ahead and turn that guy around. He checked up, didn't mean to get into Hall and gave him enough room to save it. But what an incredible save by Hall. Oh, he's going to get shoved into the outside wall as he saves it, but this time he is going to take a lot of right front damage. He pinched the driver to the inside of him entering turn 1 pretty hard there. It was Adam Gilliland who was all the way down below the banking here at Darlington, and Jacob Hall paid the price for it. He's shoved to the outside wall, and that is going to be some significant damage on his machine.
Significant damage as well for Femi Olot. Whole front grille crushed in on his machine, and it was important for Femi to have some good races stretched together because in terms of drop weeks factored in, he was only a couple spots, Ricky, above the bubble spot to make the top 20 at the moment.
Yeah, and it's tough when you see something like that, especially somebody that's so close to making it in, but yet so far away. You don't want to have a run like that. You don't want to have the damage as more contact made there with the 23 truck of Jacob Hall, and now he's in the middle of 3 wide, a damaged truck, and I think that truck might be well off the pace by this point.
Yeah, this is not looking good for Hall. He's already been shuffled back to 18th. Remember, was just in 5th position 5 laps ago. Already, for comparison's sake, some other drivers with similar damage have been running at least 4/10 off the pace at minimum a lap since getting that bad of damage.
Well, heck, Justin, I'll look at one driver. It's Femi Olot, the Total Advantage Toyota who's coming off of turn number 4 right now. He has that nose all crinkled up on his machine. As you can look on the front of his Toyota, and man, there is a lot of damage to Femi Olot's machine. Got into the back of somebody just a couple of laps ago around that stack up around the Jacob Hall machine, but very, very significant damage for Femi, who, as you remember, was very strong, running up in the top 3 and ended up with a pretty decent finish last week at Richmond. And this is that point in the race, Justin. We haven't seen any yellow flags come out, but a lot of drivers have gotten in the outside wall already, and a lot of drivers are going to be really, really struggling here because of how much damage they have.
Will Norton, meanwhile, he continues to cruise along, has gained back all the time he lost from that scrape, by the way. Well, Caden Honeycutt has recovered from a slight technical issue, been holding on to P3 in this grouping. Just in front of his teammate Matheson, it's about at least 10 truck lengths.
Oh, trouble in turn 4. Ryan Doucette is into the outside retaining wall as he'll collect 3-4 more trucks as they scatter around him. It was in the middle of 3 and 4, and he came up and made contact with the machine of Femi Olot, and he sustained some damage. Mitchell DeYoung is in it as well. Caution flag is out, Justin, for the first time here at Darlington.
Let's take a look at the replay, and you can see lots of different trucks stacking up. Doucette tried to do exactly what you said, Ricky, and that time came across the front nose.
Yeah, I think he might have been struggling with the handle of that truck when the 23 of Jacob Hall had that incident there a few laps ago. It was Ryan Doucette who had some contact and went all the way down to the apron. Maybe that was a handling issue, or he just got in there a little bit too hot and slid up to the top side of the track, and they're just battling for the same piece of real estate at that point.
So Doucette now 31st position. Zach Nichols has blown an engine, was top 5 in points as well. Cody Bias, who ran in the series in 2019 for eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series action, also involved. But this means one thing. We're just about to get to this point. Pit stops here, Blake, for the first time.
Well, and I think you talked about the tire limits. We ran long enough that these drivers are going to want to make adjustments on their cars. Of course, they come out here in this Darlington track state. They don't know what the weather's going to be. They don't know what the track state is going to be. You take a look at it right now, a lot of rubber in this track, so a lot more grip, a lot less tire fall off. So this is the first time that these drivers get to come down pit road, make those adjustments, and kind of fine tune their truck and just change it up a little bit to manage themselves in these racing conditions.
Everyone now into their pit boxes here, looking like 4 tires and fuel has to be the call. And Ricky, what are some of the things that drivers can adjust and their fellow crew chiefs and spotters to try and adjust to this weather?
Well, one thing that you can make that is just such a simple adjustment, especially if you're changing and using one of those sets of Goodyear tires that you have in the pits, of course, the limited sets that you were speaking of earlier, is tire pressure. You can change the tire pressure to either tighten or loosen the truck up, but also you have multiple spring options, the spring offsets in the pit stop adjustments, where they shove the wrench there in the back of the truck and wrench around on it. That'll kind of help these trucks to get tighter or looser. It all depends on the adjustment that the crew chief wants to make and what the driver's feedback is giving him off the track.
Top 5 out of the pit lane, by the way: Norden, Honeycutt, LaPrade, Matheson, Wilson. With Lisenby, Maines, Gilliland, Strauss, Bose rounding out the top 10 for the time being. But as these drivers line up behind the official iRacing pace car, I'd like to remind you of this week's upcoming events, including eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series action next Tuesday, when the series heads over to Indianapolis for the start of the second half of the season. Be sure to tune in. Coverage starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also catch Sim 500 action from Chicagoland, just seen from Chicagoland last week, to see how they run next week. Once again, 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday nights on Podium Esports.
Justin, while we're talking about current events and sim racing, obviously not going to be broadcast on the Podium Esports E-Waves, but I feel like we have to give a shout out to the Firecracker 400 tomorrow night.
Of course,
qualifying, commencing for that race. At least they're going to take the top 20 in times tomorrow night. And of course, there are a lot of drivers in this field who made their way through the heats for the Firecracker 400, and they'll eventually be trying to qualify their way in either tomorrow night or Thursday night. I'll be one of those guys as well. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to that. I'm excited to get behind the wheel of the 87 car and be able to wheel that thing around Daytona.
And with just one lap to set yourself into the 43 car grid, how much pressure are you feeling personally, Blake, right now?
It's a lot. Getting off the apron, all those things add up when you only have one lap. How you get up to speed off the apron is going to make a big difference in what you're able to do, what type of lap you're able to put down. But everything about it is challenging. Exactly what you want, Justin. I feel like everything is in the driver's hands. Obviously, you have the open setups that are coming into play, much like these guys running the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series. So you have a little bit of control over what you're able to do, but it's just going to be really exciting. Those cars, if you haven't tried those cars out here in iRacing, you're really missing out. Those 87 cars are a blast, absolute blast to drive around here, as well as these trucks can be here at Darlington.
Taking a ride for the time being with Matheson starting outside row 2. One driver did elect to come down a second time for repairs. Ryan Kuhn electing to go to the back of the field. An iRacing official pace car dropping off into the pit lane. Norden in control of the field. Nexus 1, 2, 4 as Norden's off and away.
And Norton's able to escape here, able to clear his teammate Caden Honeycutt now throughout the field. Where do you go? How do you get single file here? Plenty of double file. Oh, and Briar LaPrade is around in front of the field, and that's a big stack up here in 1 and 2. Steven Wilson, Briar LaPrade. Heavy damage on those two machines as they get tangled up here in 1 and 2, and that's exactly what we were talking about, Justin. You have to get single file as several cars get a lot of damage out of that. Anthony Burrows is involved. Donovan Strauss, his Toyota was clipped in that. Garrett Maines also got a piece of it, Justin, and this is the worst spot for it to happen. Cautions breed cautions, but you can't sort things out here at Darlington. Bad things happen. You just saw it right there.
Already apologies coming from Wilson, as at least 5 trucks involved in that one, Ricky. Your take on that?
Yeah, it's just one of those things at Darlington International Speedway. When a car gets turned in front of the field here, there's just nowhere to go. The banking's taking you up towards the wall, and trucks are just trying to find anywhere they could possibly go to get away from it. And unfortunately, Briar LaPrade just slid up the track after getting a little bit of contact there, and nobody just had anywhere to go on the speedway.
Already several drivers having to take damage repair, by the way, with this situation, as we're not even 100 laps to go quite yet. About 40 laps in or so once the end of the caution flag comes in. And this is, again, the type of cautions where the tire sets can come into play here, Blake.
Well, they're certainly going to come into play. I don't think we're going to see a lot of guys, unless maybe they took a lot of damage during this caution flag. You're probably not going to see a lot of drivers change tires at this stage of the race just because you didn't run enough laps on it. You want to make sure that you have a set at the end. I talked to a couple of these drivers before we got going, and that was pretty much the theme amongst all of them, is you don't want to get to the end of the race and not have that set of tires if you need them for a 10, 15 lap run to the end, because these tires matter a lot. There's a lot of fall off here at Darlington. So these guys are going to be pretty conservative, but you're really going to see it come into play, Justin, when if we get about a 10 or 15 lap run here and then get a caution, that's where you're really going to see the split in strategy between these guys that really want to keep their track position and the guys that want to try and make their way forward. That's when you're going to see a lot of changing, a lot of strategy come into play. But after just a restart where we got to turn 1, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of it yet.
You can see several of the drivers, mind you, who are up inside that top 30. 13 we just seen on the screen. Majority of them, Ricky, did not start there. Several of the drivers from 10th to 15th up double-digit positions. Same could be said as well for several other drivers. So a lot of big movers, and a lot of the drivers who just started in the top 10, unfortunately, were just in that incident.
Yeah, as you know, a lot of drivers started from the back, whether they elected to or had some issues in qualifying. One of those drivers I'm currently looking at right now is Carson Hosevar. He started in the 27th position, and he's already up to the 11th spot after that whole debacle there that brought out the caution. So a good run for him, or at least up until this point. But as we've seen at Darlington, things can change just like that.
Indeed, and of note, the Boyd Hogan Fan Club has come out in full support for the Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy Esports truck up to 12th position as well. That machine plus 10, and spent several weeks trying to get to top split to try and compete for this race right here, especially for his team and his sponsor, Rogue Energy.
Well, and Justin, I know that grind. It is very difficult to put in the time and everything necessary to get up to this top split. Everything in iRacing is so competitive, and of course being up here and even just getting the top split is a journey all in itself. And any driver that's up here and has had to battle their way up into these splits has had to do a heck of a job to try. And I think of a guy like Brian Mercurio, who spent his first couple of races in second and third split here in Road to Pro, and not only is he in top split, he's the number 6 or the 6th highest I-rating driver who is in this field right now. Derek Justice, he's been bouncing back and forth. A lot of these, Adam Gilliland, he started in second split. So a lot of these guys, there's a lot of mobility in these splits. As we talked about earlier, guys like Seth the Merchant drop out, and a couple of guys who have been running in those second and third splits start to work their way up to top and really start to battle head-to-head with the rest of these drivers that are left trying to look for that top 20 spot in points.
The interesting thing's going to be here on this start, I think, Ricky. How is Garrett Maines' truck going to respond? Because the whole back end of that one machine has been crushed in from that last caution flag in that incident. At this point, Ricky, what do you feel he's going through at this point, or how that truck's going to respond when the green flag drops?
Well, if you look at the truck right now, the rear end is crushed in, and really with these trucks and the way that they are set up for a track like this, you could consider it a mile and a half, as it has that type of racing to it, I guess you could say. But really what you don't want damage on is that right side and the right front fender. I don't think the rear end will affect him as much, but the left front fender has significant damage as well. So I believe that that could be an issue. Even though it's not on the right side, that much damage could affect his handling.
Going to be very curious to see how this goes for him. The top 10 is Norton, Honeycutt, Matheson, Lisenby, Gilliland, Bose, Maines in that 7th position, Justice, Burrows, and Mercurio. Rounding out the top 10, biggest mover, as talked about, was Hosevar. Now the question is going to be, how will these drivers handle this start? They've been early in the restart box throughout the race so far, Blake.
Well, it's really easy up front. You have a lot of Nexus Esports drivers up there, so you imagine some type of countdown is probably on for a lot of those drivers, as we'll see Will Norton will probably take off here and probably gets a pretty good jump along with his Nexus teammates, although third on behind him didn't get a great jump in Jake Matheson, but you see Honeycutt able to get right in line, push Norton up to the front, but they're side by side for second. We'll see if 2 wide, almost 3 wide works here in 1 and 2. They're able to make their way forward. Matheson able to move up into the 3rd spot. Almost contact for 4th, though, between Lisenby, Gilliland, and Bose. But how about that? Gilliland, he's on a march to the front of the field.
Bose did scrape the wall a little bit on corner exit of note, as everyone making their way back up to the top side. And to say the very least, that was the 3 count, as you can put it, on that start. By the way, Maines already shuffled out to P9 with that damage, and several trucks are trying to dive right underneath and behind the 1 in this choo-choo train.
Yeah, as it's becoming a cluster as they round out of the turn 2 area of the track. It looks like he's pulled a gap over Carson Hosevar, but we're going to have to see if he can maintain that there as the rest of the field wants to get by him. It's not really sure, and it's not clear right now if that damage is affecting him or if he just got a bad restart. We'll have to take a look at that at some point, but right now it doesn't look like it's affecting him that much, as he's being able to keep up with that 41 truck in front of him.
And keep in mind, the Elliott Sauer Esports machine is one of 2 competitors in the various different splits tonight, pulling double duty, Ricky, where he competed in the summer shootout earlier today, finished P5 in his class.
Yeah, and doing double duty, especially real life to iRacing, is so difficult. Fortunately for me, I have the blessing of being able to race in real life and do legend car racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I can tell you that even though it is a simulator on here, it's still not easy when you get into the high-tense races, especially after running a real-life race in the heat outdoors the whole entire day.
That taking place, of course, at Charlotte Motor Speedway, as there goes Hosevar driving his way on by, up inside the top 9 with that move. Next driver behind is Freinage with damage. Burrows also has damage. Up towards the front, though, Honeycutt keeping up this time with Norton on the short run.
Well, and Honeycutt, probably a driver that went down on pit road, made some adjustments to his truck, because for now he is able to keep pace with Will Norton and run what we thought that Honeycutt was capable of running. Obviously got the pole last week at Richmond. Race didn't go his way and has had a couple of really tough weeks about the last month or so. But Honeycutt, as you can see, being able to keep up now with Norton, pulled away from his fellow Nexus Esports teammate in Jake Matheson. Also being able to pull away from that 32 machine, Gilliland. But again, this is just one of those instances, Justin. We're really just going to have to wait and see things settle out. We've seen that a lot of drivers have that long run speed as long as they don't get into trouble. And I'm really interested and curious to see a lot of these drivers.
Trouble back straight away. Donovan Strauss turn on the apron, spinning in turn 3. Off the racing surface. No caution flag, and that's one of the tricky spots of Darlington. If you spin down on the apron, you are likely not going to get the caution flag.
Yes, he is way out of the racing groove down there at the bottom after that spin by him. Not sure if there was contact or if he just lost the handling on the truck and spun down to the apron. We'll have to take a look at a replay, but that 51 truck off the pace significantly now. We're not sure if he has damage or what the case may be, but he's going to be well behind the field and looking for a caution now at this point in the race.
By the way, he did have help with Jacob Hall in that sequence. Here's a look at the replay, and keep in mind, Jacob Hall had to get significant damage on his truck. Strauss has a bit of damage on that left front and that right rear. Had the run, but got a little bit too close, Blake, right down this back.
Well, you see it right here. They get side by side. You typically don't think that this is where contact's going to be made. But you see Jacob Hall just moves up the entire straightaway and just turns Donovan Strauss. Strauss was just a completely innocent bystander right there. Really, there was nothing he could do. He was just riding up by the wall just like you should at Darlington, and he gets hooked on the straightaway and turned around by Jacob Hall. It was already a tough day for Strauss, who had a lot of damage already. He doesn't get any right there, but obviously loses a ton of track position. Is 21, now call it nearly 22 seconds behind the leader. So he needs a caution flag here quickly to try and stay back on the lead lap. But man, Jacob Hall, he's been around a lot of action here at Darlington, and we're only about 52 laps in.
Now in the start of lap 53, Honeycutt took a look. But now it's a 1, 2, 3 for Nexus. All lined up on the train, and already discussions from some of the drivers to try and give space to one another based on the pace.
Yeah, and Justin Prince, I have a question for you. Do you think that these guys in their team speak or speaking amongst their team are talking about staying in a line here, or do you think these guys are going to go out and race each other? It's going to be very difficult to see at the end of the race. Do you think that they will try and stay single file here and keep the top three locked down, or do you think they're going to race each other hard for the spot?
Based on what we're seeing and based on past experiences, and I think, Blake, curious to hear your response on this, Nexus likes to work together and try and keep themselves clean and try and help each other, especially at the tracks that involve draft and can be tough to pass that. And that's, I think, what we're seeing right here. If they feel like one another has the pace, though, I think they'll try and sacrifice the spot.
Well, I think it's like any other race. Of course, Darlington, along with a couple other tracks on this Road to Pro schedule, hard to pass, but obviously it's very unique here at Darlington. You get side by side, and both of you are going to slow up. So I don't think it's really any different that you'll see teams kind of working together. Maybe if one driver is faster, somebody will make a deal, let somebody go, and kind of save both of them a little bit of time, a little bit of track position, not holding each other up too much. So from that, I don't see it being much different than any other race. But right now, with just how the groupings are right now, you have a lot of drivers who are grouped up together. Obviously, 1 through 4 right now is Nexus Esports. You see a lot of guys kind of stacked up throughout the field that had these alliances together, but one driver that has snuck up here into the top 5, and I have to mention his name. It seems like every race he doesn't get the qualifying time that he wanted, but he is up here in the top 5, and that is that GameStop Toyota of Derek Justice, who, powered by Norse Force, those guys just seem to bust out these long run setups, especially at these big tracks, and I would not be surprised to see here if he's able to manage his stuff and try to make a way by all 4 of these Nexus Esports cars in front of him.
Last time by was about a tenth or so quicker. Let's go side by side. You're watching Podium Esports for coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series from Darlington. Looking on board from Adam Gilliland as he is currently in P number 6. 80 laps to go this time by from Darlington here on Podium Esports for coverage of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series action. Justin Prince, Blake McCandless, Ricky Spearman, Brian Bauer in the director's seat. And for those just tuning in, Nexus in control of the top 4, all in a single file line. But Derek Justice, I think he's wanting to pounce now in that Norse Force machine in the back of the line.
Well, certainly so. You think about how long we are in this run. We've got going green on lap 44. We're about lap 60. So this is when we start to see that anywhere from that 15 to 20 lap range is when you're really going to see the long run trucks start to shine, especially here as the track continues to change. We started here with a lot of rubber in this track, more than we usually see in these Road to Pro races. You can even see visually on your screen there. Look at the groove there in 1 and 2 as we follow along with Derek Justice. You can see where these guys run, and where they don't run is already full of rubber. So this track state was very worn in. The track temperature continues to cool down as the sun goes down. That shadow up by the wall in 3 and 4 gets larger and larger. There's a little bit of grip right there if you can run right along the wall. So the track is going to continue to change, going to continue to probably cool down throughout the day. But again, these long run drivers are really going to start to shine right here. But I think Justice right now is just going to ride around and hope that anytime over the next 5 or 6 laps, you start seeing a little bit of slower trucks, a little bit of guys getting tight, getting loose up in front of him. But he's going to make the move for 4th now.
To the bottom side in turn 3. Justice has been trying to set this up for at least 5 laps or so. Just can't get the run on the Valvoline machine. Can't get the side draft either, back to single file. And mention the side draft part right there. That was something adjusted for some of the cars in the most recent iRacing update, Ricky.
Yeah, and it was adjusted for the simple fact that, you know, some of these cars didn't quite handle, I guess, the way with the new aero package that were introduced the previous update before this one. So the side draft is a big deal in real life. You see it happen all the time, especially if you watch NASCAR in the real life scene in the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series. They'll get side by side and they'll pull up to the door or the quarter panel and try and pack that air on the rear spoiler of the other car to try and slow them down. That is a physics that we have now in the iRacing service, and it has been updated and is working better than ever. So there's going to be a lot of guys side drafting down the straightaways to try and gain an edge, especially if they're trying to pass on the bottom like Derek Justice.
Indeed, and by the way, these drivers are about to have to deal with lap traffic, because right behind this group, Jordi Lopez Jr. is back running on the racetrack in the 44 machine. Currently scored 4 laps down in 30th, came down, and right now is just behind the 6th place driver, that being Gillen.
Yeah, certainly. Lap traffic is a huge factor here at Darlington, just because you think about the fact that if you're a lap car, you don't necessarily know where to go on the racetrack. You see Lopez, he's actually going to make a move by Gillen because he's much faster on way fresher tires than the rest of this field. So while they're battling up here, these guys just have to kind of decide how they're going to race Lopez, who, again, that last time by was about 2/10 quicker than the leader, despite moving by Adam Gilliland. So Lopez is digging on those fresher tires. You can see visually now on your screen how much tires matter here at Darlington, especially with Lopez. You think about some of the damage that he's sustained. He's that much faster, can roll through, and he's going to have to be very careful here on how he passes these trucks to try and get back to 3 laps down. But I don't think it'll take him too long to do it, Justin.
Absolutely, and that time Justice not backing off as much. Loses about a half a second because of that. Finally gets back single file, but that, take a look, has already allowed Gilliland and Hosevar back into the battle, Ricky.
Yes, Gillen and Hosevar now going to start going at each other here, or maybe just try and catch up to that Derek Justice machine as they're going to try and get bumper to bumper. They're going to try and push each other down these straightaways. You don't think at a small track like Darlington that a bump draft would be helpful, but between Adam Gillen and Carson Hosevar, if they could get those trucks hooked up on the straightaways and push each other just enough to try and get that extra speed, maybe even 1 to 2 miles an hour over a 5-lap run, that could mean passing Derek Justice.
Still has been a hard battle for the top 2 who have ran away from lap traffic and company. Matheson currently 1.2 seconds behind Norden. The pace difference right now has been up to about a 10th a lap each time around the past 5.
It's been a pretty big difference. But you know what? I'm going to highlight another driver that's up here in the top 8. I don't know if a whole lot of iRacers know his name. It's Brian Mercurio, a newcomer this year to the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series. But I got to tell you what, he is making an awfully good impression right here. As we mentioned, a relative newcomer here to the top split, but has been doing his work in second split. He's right now 9th in the point standings with a drop, and he has been doing a great job being consistent. You can see right here, working with low line and running that nice little low line throwback scheme is Brian Mercurio. Just doing a nice job staying out of trouble. And, you know, I've raced with Mercurio for a couple of years. That's his MO, being smart, not pushing anything too hard. His race truck is clean, and obviously halfway through this, that's what you want to see as we approach the halfway break. But Mercurio doing a nice job running here in P8, and that's about all you can ask. P8, a very solid point stay when the points get all spread out here in the top split.
Halfway that time by for the lead drivers again. Will Norton up at the front of the field. Also, by the way, inside the top 10, the king of the long run. Also a member of low line, Andrew Freinage has moved his way into P10, able to pass Garrett Maines a couple laps ago. And running a special paint scheme tonight, honoring Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his induction to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and that's such a cool scenario to go through as Dale Earnhardt Jr. was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, like you said. That's such an honor for a driver to have. You think of any driver in the world or any sports player, you think with the Baseball Hall of Fame, in the Football Hall of Fame, even in Atlanta where I'm from, the College Football Hall of Fame. Every sport has that place that you want to be at after you are done playing your sport, after you're done doing what you love to do. You get recognition for it. So a great tribute paint scheme, and you just love to see it out there on the track, especially running inside the top 10.
For those wondering the reason Freinage running that paint scheme as he tries to run down Alan Bowes from Total Advantage, multiple times he's ran in various different leagues. He's had various Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwback paints and inspired paint schemes. It's his favorite driver and his idol up towards the front. But with that, as we cross the halfway point of tonight's race, it's time to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates racing on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing from the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Currently up at the front of the field is Will Norton, followed by Caden Honeycutt 1-2, leading by about 0.2 of a second. Jake Matheson just lost P3 to Jarek Justice, this time by, with Lisenby cycled to P5. Gillens in 6 with Hosevar, Mercurio, Freinage, and Bowes rounding up the top 10, Blake.
11th will be Buyos. 12th is Garrett Maines. 13th is Dylan Jones. 14th is Anthony Burrows. 15th running up from the 32nd spot. I feel like we say that every week, is Casey Tucker out of the slip angle camp. Boyd Hogan is in 16th. Jarrett Liebert is in 17th. 18th is Blake Neer. 19th is Brian Blackford. And running in 20th is Ryan Kuhn.
Famiola at 21st position after suffering damage early. Ryan Doucette also beat up in 22nd. Trey Lapsevich, after being involved with significant damage early, has fixed his truck to 23rd. Stephen Wilson's 24th. Jacob Hall, Cody Bias, Mitchell DeYoung 26th through 27th. Brian LaPrade, the first truck, a lap down in 28th. Donovan Strauss 29th. Jordy Lopez rounds out the top 30, 4 laps down. The rest of the drivers, Zach Nichols, 10 laps down, just came on the racetrack, while Roper is the only DNF of the night so far. That concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, with over 170 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, visit iRacing.com today. As that's been all going on, the top 2 have stayed single filed out, but Justice, he's coming. Fastest truck on the track right now. Ran a 1/10 of a second quicker than the leaders last time by, this time by doing the same thing.
And this is what Justice is going to have to do as we approach nearly 40 laps now into this long run. It's just slowly work these trucks. You see lap traffic in front of him in the form of Jordy Lopez, who those tires have kind of cycled back to where he's running even with the rest of this field. He's going to have to just work his way slowly through this traffic, continue to be smooth. That's how he's gotten up here. Not making any mistakes, not getting into the outside wall. He's just going to have to be smooth and run these guys down. It was 2/10 that he made up that last time by, so no doubt about it. That GameStop truck is hauling the mail right now.
They also had DeYoung to get around as well, by the way, in that Now it's the interesting part of this race, Ricky, where if it stays green, when do you pit? We're inside the fuel window, mind you, to get to the end rest of the way. But the question is, when do you elect to try to pit with this type of track?
Well, I think it's going to come down to the first guy that hits pit road. I mean, it's so important to have new tires here. New tires could even mean a second, maybe even two on the racetrack per lap. That's how much tires matter. So I think once the first truck comes down, if you're Will Norton or Caden Honeycutt or Derek Justice, you're going to have to come down pit road sometime soon, because a driver from 15th place or above could come down pit road and then gain all the positions back, gain all the way up to the lead if these drivers stay out too much longer after that car pits.
Speaking of pit stops, there's Lopez in, looking like Lopez is done for the night, yes. So Lopez is elected to park it and pull his car onto the tow truck. Onto said tow truck. But now, what do you think's going through the heads of these two? Because they're still focused on how the run's going, it seems. But they have to know that Justice is coming in quick, and it's similar to what we've seen at Richmond.
Well, I think if you're these two trucks up here, you have a faster truck behind you, you have to really be thinking about when to split this run exactly in half and try to pit before Derek Justice pits. You think about if Justice were to come down pit road right now, as he continues to run these two trucks down, it's now down to 1.2 seconds after being about a second and a half that last time by. So Justice is on the march. He's on the way. If Justice were to pit just even a lap before Norton and Honeycutt came down, that would probably be enough to cycle him out to the lead. He'd only be on one lap older tires, and of course, it's so hard to pass here at Darlington. That track position is key. So if I were Norton, if I were Honeycutt, I'd be thinking really hard right now about when to come down pit road, because another 0.2 of a second was just nipped off the lead that Norton had, and Justice is marching right now.
Fall off in this race, 1.5 seconds throughout the run so far. Here's the gap already, half a second between Honeycutt and Justice staying out this time by. I'd like to welcome those who came from Jigsaw Bunquy in a raid, 5 total viewers from that grouping. But at this point, this grouping now has some friends. How do you take this now, Justice, if you're Justice? Because already appearing that they're communicating and potentially let each other go.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to say to that. I think you just need to get by Caden Honeycutt at this point. I mean, he's so much faster on the long run here, and one thing that Blake was just speaking on is that if Derek comes down pit road first, then Will and Caden will have to come down. Well, I don't think Derek wants to be the first one. He's so much faster than these guys in first and second on older tires. I think he wants to stay out as long as he possibly can on this fuel run and try and get up to the lead, so then he's in control and can pit first.
Justice trying to get it done on the track first. Honeycutt moves to the bottom. And there's the space talked about. They negotiated over the radio a couple laps ago, and Justice now up to P2, just 0.8 or so back from Will Norton.
And I don't think it's going to take him too long now, Justin, to be able to march his way forward there. But the one thing that can derail not only Justice, but Norton, Honeycutt, any of these guys is getting on the pit road here. It is so difficult here at Darlington. It's one of the more difficult pit roads to judge just because of how much racetrack, how much the width and area that is between the banking that you're running on the bottom side and how low you have to get on pit road. So mistakes are probably going to come into play here, but you can't overshoot getting onto pit road. It is very difficult to do here, and that is the one thing that Justice, with how fast he's showing here, he really can't afford to make a mistake. If he's this much faster, once we get about 50, 60 laps into a run, he can take pit road entry pretty easy here and know that he has a truck that can go and win this race earlier. So for Justice especially, no mistakes, but obviously Norton, Honeycutt, Matheson, you have to be thinking big picture here. You need those good finishes. You need those points. You don't need to make a mistake either, because honestly, you finish up in the top 5, you're doing yourself a service here in this Road to Pro Series.
Contact up the road for the battle seen on screen. Adam Gilliland hit the wall just a touch coming out of turn 4. Had to fishtail it as well in that minor scrape. Currently holding on to P6 on his own and slowly being reeled in by that said battle we just seen. Hosevar and Freinage is that grouping. And as said multiple times here with this track and with how Ricky how the racing has been for some of these drivers, some lean towards the long, short to mid run. But if you want to be successful, you need to be good at all points of the run.
Yeah, and also it doesn't come down to driver skill either. It's not the driver's choice if they get to be good on the shorter long run. It comes down to setup. A lot of these guys may have set their trucks up for a shorter run, maybe expected a lot more cautions, which there's still a lot of racing left. We could see a bunch of cautions here at the end of the race, as now Carson Hosevar almost has the Ford truck to his inside, but thinks better of it as the 16 almost goes to his. But honestly, I don't think that all of these guys went for the long run trucks. I think that Derek Justice in that number 19 truck went for a long run truck because everybody else was going to do the short run. So I think people like Carson Hosevar, Adam Gilliland, and Caden Honeycutt, they might be the guys who are trying to go more on the shorter run side of things and be ready for those late race restarts, because at a place like Darlington, the Lady in Black has other plans than what the drivers do.
50 laps to go this time. You've seen on your screen pit stops. Those were all the Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy Esports and Slip Angle Motorsports machines, for the most part, coming down on the same lap cycle. They work together, and here comes the battle for the race lead. Justice gets space from Norton, sacrifices the lead. Derek Justice to the point for the first time tonight.
And much like he did about 8 or 9 years ago in the Blazing Pedals Camping World or 7-Eleven Super Truck Series, Derek Justice, making it look easy, has marched all the way to the front of the field. And again, I think it's hard to overstate here, Justin, just how fast he is. Derek Justice, that last time by, mind you, he was passing a truck, 31.206. You look at the rest of some of the cars in the top 10, Adam Gilliland, a 31.46. Drew Freinage, the long run king, 31.78. Justice right now is just on a different level than the rest of this field, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him continue to pull away here. He's got lap traffic in front of him that he'll have to navigate, but there's no doubt about it. Norse Force is here to play, and they are doing a magnificent job here once again at one of these larger tracks here at Darlington.
Very similar performance, to say the very least, what we've seen at Richmond. Now the curious question now is, how does Norton counter? We talked about the importance of pitting first. I'm surprised we haven't seen that already, with some drivers doing that with 47 to go.
Yeah, and I'm surprised just as much as you are. I think these drivers need to come to pit road soon. The fuel window is closing up, and not just the fuel window, but tires. These guys have to be getting tired of these older tires, and especially the numbers on them going down. The wear is starting to come off the tire. You might see some guys blow some tires if they try and make it go too long here. We'll just have to see, but nobody electing to go down pit road yet.
Again, a race cap. Blackford, Hogan, and Lapsevich have been the only drivers to pit so far in this cycle. They're currently pinned a lap down, and you'll see them right now passing by some of the leaders, in fact, with the difference in pace. In the fast, right now they're running 29.5s and 29.2s, by the way, compared to the leaders who are still running the 31 flats to 33.7s in some cases.
It's such a big difference, Justin. You think about Honeycutt was running right with Will Norton up in the top of the field the entire time, and just the pace and the fall off here in the long run compared to Derek Justice is really just staggering, Justin. I don't know any other way to describe it. 31.298 for Justice that last time, 31.580, and another 4 there for Will Norton. I think if you're Justice, though, you can afford to stay out here. Lap 92 would have been splitting this run in half. You can see on your screen it's lap 96. And now a couple of those next Z Sports cars will make their way onto the safety of pit road to try and make their way down. Can't speed, can't make any mistakes, as you see a bunch of trucks start to enter pit road. But if you're Derek Justice, you have this much speed. You see Kyle Busch do it a lot in these cup races where he has a very fast truck. You can afford to stay out 3, 4, 5 laps a little bit longer. If you lose a little bit of track position, you can come back out and have very, very fast lap times with having those faster trucks. But now Derek Justice, he's going to follow suit. No mistakes. He gets on the pit road, and it looks like it was a pretty clean entry to me there, Justin.
Just made it down to speed. Pit road speed limit, 45 miles an hour. Bad luck if you are a Ryan Kuhn fan, by the way. Kuhn missed the pit lane and wobbled down the whole front straightaway, having to come down a second time That will lose the 3 truck several seconds of the racetrack as the leader is now into the pit lane. Bose came in, Jones, Doucette, a lot of others all down the lane. Only Steven Wilson has stayed out.
Steven Wilson still out there on the track and running the top side. He's going to try and bank on a caution. I'm assuming that's what the strategy is anyways, that he just wants a caution to come out at this point. He can stay out. Everybody else already gone down pit road, but no, he's going to pit in this time as Steven Wilson now entering down into the Darlington pit road.
That leaves now Cody Bias having to duck down and spin for Bias on the pit road entry, drifted off the apron of the 8 truck. But Derek Justice, he's off and away. He has been cycled in front of Honeycutt, but behind Will Norton on the racetrack by a few seconds.
Well, you can see just how big of a difference even a couple of laps, even in just one lap of fresher tires, made that much of a difference for Justice, who now comes out just a little bit behind Will Norton, who has the lead. Boyd Hogan is also up in the top portion of this field after he pit quite a bit earlier than the rest of these guys. So Boyd up in the top 3 right now, but Justice is probably going to be able to run him down in a relatively short amount of time. However, I like this move from Boyd Hogan here, Justin. This is a strategy move here from Hogan because of how important tires are here at Darlington. If you're a driver that really needs to make up a lot of points in the Road to Pro standings, why not try something like this? All we have to do is go 5, 6, 7 laps here on this run. We're going to get a caution, and I imagine that most of the field will be on pit road if we do get that yellow for 4 tires. So Hogan, a nice strategy call here, was running in about the 12th or 13th position there on the long run, but I really like this call. If he does get a yellow, he's going to be able to gain a lot of track position, and the rest of the field's going to follow him down pit road.
That time just letting Justice on by, that's for P2. And when talking to Hogan before, he mentioned a couple weeks ago that there's a magic number he needed to hit to try and get into the top 20, about 50, 60 points gained on that spot each race. He did that at Richmond, but it's going to be difficult to do if you don't have the performances to try and get that to work. He mentioned his goal, try and get a top 10 tonight.
Ricky, yeah, trying to get into the top 10 position, and he's definitely doing so right now. This is where he needs to be for this race, and he's just sitting pretty in the 3rd position now as Derek Justice does move around him there, but he just needs to stay up there and hopefully wait out a caution here. The field has been very spread out. I'm surprised we got through the pit cycle there without a caution coming out, as Blake was speaking earlier about how difficult it is to get down onto the pit road here, as it's so steep, the banking is through the corners, and then as soon as you get below that dotted line, the track almost completely flattens out. So I'm surprised that no cautions came out. But one person I do want to speak on really quick, who is currently under fire, is Brian Blackford. He's inside the top 5 after a 21st position starting position. He could have a great run here tonight.
He was one of the trucks mentioned that took that undercut strategy by about 9 laps. And he's not giving up the spots like Boyd Hogan's been doing at the front of the field. He's trying to clinch onto these positions hard, not making it easy.
Well, not making it easy. He's trying to find a way around Boyd Hogan, who's on the same strategy as him. So this is going to be holding up that Valvoline Toyota quite a bit. A couple of trucks going to start stacking up here. Matheson, Jacob Hall, who's also lapped down. This could be a big moment here. It's now the 18 trying to do all he can to shove the Valvoline Toyota by Blackford. This could get hairy, but they're able to make it out. Blackford holding the top side here in 1 and 2. This is the best chance we've had for a caution in a while. Now Jacob Hall going to try to get by there as well, but that's not going to be very good for Lisenby, who obviously just wants to get back up front and get by these slower cars. And one other thing that I was going to talk about there, Justin, before we went to break, is Will Norton is running about 0.2 a lap faster than Derek Justice, and I think this is Will Norton kind of playing a strategy all in itself. He has the lead right now. He's seen how strong Justice is on the long run, but this isn't going to be as long of a run as we saw. These drivers went past halfway of splitting this run in half, so I think Norton, he's just digging, absolutely digging, getting everything he can right now. if he's going to get a caution in the next 20 laps, he wants to be a lead, and then he can try and race for the win here. But he's going to do everything he can to keep this lead from Justice as long as possible before I think that Justice machine really starts to show in the long run.
Let's go side by side. 33 laps to go this time by. You're watching Podium Esports for tonight's coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series from Darlington. Welcome back, everyone, to Podium Esports' coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series from Darlington Raceway. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCandless and Ricky Spreer. Ryan Bauer in the director's seat for tonight's action. As Derek Justice, he's got the shovels out. He's now closed the gap from over 2 seconds to 1.6 seconds on Will Norton on only 1 lap difference tires.
Well, he's starting to make up that ground, Justin, and again, Norton doing all he can to try to get as much out of his truck and how strong it is on the short run. It's not significant gains that Justice is making right now, nothing strong enough that in the next 10 laps or so, Justice would be able to pass him. But again, I go back to this fact that this run is not going to be as long as that first run was. So the advantage that Justice has over that long run is not going to be as large here. And of course, if we get that yellow flag that everybody wants, you're going to stack them all up, and then you're going to have Justice in a complete sandwich of Nexus Esports cars, which I know we're talking a lot about Justice. How about Nexus Esports, who has 4 of the top 5 runners right now? They obviously came with a lot of speed here to Darlington.
It just seems, Ricky, compared to 2019, this is a whole different program because they did not have a single eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Technical Alliance represented driver coming into the season. Since the beginning of the campaign, it's like everything's turned around from that organization, not just in Road to Pro competition, but the NASCAR iRacing Series, which also implemented its tire limits this week. They've won a majority of the events as a team this year.
Yeah, and that just means they've been putting in the work off of when they have the virtual off-season that we have here on the iRacing simulator. They've been putting in the work. They've been taking the time, doing a lot of hours in testing, getting these cars ready for the iRacing Coca-Cola Series and the iRacing Pro Series, or Road to Pro Series, rather. And it takes so much going into these races. These drivers will practice for hours upon hours getting ready for qualifying setups and qualifying runs. For a short run car, you set up the car differently. So much goes into these cars on here that you can't even begin to imagine how much time and effort is put in by so many people on a given race team week in and week out to make it into the Pro Series and even in the top level of sim racing.
Absolutely. It takes a ton of work and effort, and I think there was a good saying in respect to the signs I've heard from various different organizations. For some, it can be a hobby, but once you get the importance of sponsors and the importance of trying to go pro, it becomes almost like a job. In the case of Blake, you have to put in at least several hours a day as a unit to be able to properly get the cars ready to go and your trucks ready to go to get to the highest levels in all of iRacing.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Justin. I competed in the first 4 weeks here in Road to Pro, was second split for Daytona, and then was top split for 3 races after that. And that's just the way that's just the way it is. You have to put down. I remember at Rockingham was really the first race. Obviously Daytona's Daytona, but you get to Rockingham and you're putting down hundreds and hundreds of laps in testing, trying to get ready, find out short run, long run, any little tweak that you can get for these things. There's a reason that there's 2 weeks in between these races, and these race teams that are very serious about putting their drivers into the Pro Series to try and get to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, they put in those full 2 weeks. They maybe take a day off, if that. I know even a couple of teams that are already preparing for our next race right now. And obviously you have Darlington, so there's no doubt about it that anybody who out there thinks that this is something that's easy and you can just roll up, this isn't official racing. This isn't even open setup racing on what you'll see at a lot of iRacing. This is the top of the top. These guys are ruthless, and every hour that you're not spending getting better, somebody else is. So these teams put in all that time because they know what's on the line in the long run.
Honeycutt quicker last time by in the top 3, but Justice now within under a second. Lapchevich moves out of the way that time by one of the Legacy Esports machines. Only one other lap truck up the road for the time being, and Ryan Kuhn is in 22nd position. Then it's clean track for this fight for the time being. Every corner, entry and exit, Ricky. Justice has reeled in the gap by about half a tenth.
Yes, he's just running a completely different line as he starts to kind of run the same line as Will Norton as he's getting in there and getting into drafting range. But he's been entering right up on the outside wall and then almost diamonding the corner after entering on the wall. A weird line from him, but it's been working for him. He gained 2/10 a few laps ago and has been consistently gaining, and he's going to love to see on his relatives there that there are no lap trucks ahead of this battle for the lead. Once he gets by Ryan Kuhn here, that's not what you want. He does not want the arrow push from those cars, or those lap trucks in front of him rather, especially since he has to deal with that to get to the back bumper of Will Norton.
By the way, Kuhn nearly turned the truck into the fence trying to get back up to the preferred line after lane by Justice. Here he comes within 2/10 of a second. Trying to make the move for the race lead, having to back up the corner this time.
And Derek Justice going to do all he can, trying to wrap that car. You see him running the middle side of the racetrack. Norton doing everything he can, nearly scrapes the outside retaining wall, as now we'll cross it this time by 19 laps to go. The battle for the lead is on, and you know that Will Norton is going to do everything in his power to make it as difficult as possible for Justice to get around. 5 seconds ahead of third. Norton has nothing to lose, and of course, if we get that caution, being up front is going to be oh so important. So don't expect it to be easy. Justice is going to have a lot of speed. It's one thing to run this guy down. It's another thing to pass him, and Justice is going to have to go the hard way around the bottom side to get around Will Norton.
Norton's been bobbling around each and every corner, entry and exit throughout this battle already. Here comes the run for Justice. Tries to diamond the corner, forced to burp the throttle. Pokes it to the inside, into turn 3, coming at 17 laps to go. Not given too much space. Norton now side by side with Justice.
As they're going to come out of turn 4, the 25 truck in the preferred lane on the top. Almost contact as Derek Justice going to fall back into line. He's now going to have to track back down Will Norton and set up another pass coming down the back straightaway this time with 17 laps to go.
And Norton doing all he can. He is weeble-wobbling that truck, but it's breaking Justice's momentum down the backstretch. And as we saw that last time, very difficult for Justice to keep the throttle down as he got a little bit loose on corner exit in 3 and 4. So it's going to be off of 1 and 2 that I think Justice makes his move, but he's going to have to watch out for Norton, who's starting to fishtail up there in the top spot.
Looking like whatever just was made there was going on a bit on the looser side, bobbling around once again, nearly scrapes the wall. Again, Justice trying to ramp it off turn 2. Just can't get enough momentum to make the pass compared to like he could before. 15 to go.
And this is when it becomes difficult as these trucks, they put them right on the fence, right where the shadows you see on the outside walls through turn 3 and 4. They want to put it right up there on the grip strip, as some people call it. And they want to be as close to that grip strip as possible, as we see Derek Justice doing it every single lap, even attempting it in turn 1 and 2. As Will Norton going to get a little sideways. Now down the back straightaway, Derek Justice looking to the inside.
Side by side again for the race lead. Justice tries to give the squeeze. Norton tries to hold on the long way. Through the corner. Norton again with the chance to get the run off the corner. Bobbles up. Justice side by side of the stripe. Chance to clear into turn 1.
And Derek Justice going to try to complete the move here all the way to the bottom side. They nearly make contact as Norton on the top side doing his best to hold it on, and Norton going to move down, slide through, and clear Derek Justice now. 14 laps to go, and Justice could not complete the pass. It's going to be awfully difficult to make it in 3 and 4, and as we just saw, that top side is going to be coveted ground for Will Norton. He is struggling, he is sliding, but right now, he's still leading the pack.
These two right now about 4 seconds ahead of Caden Honeycutt. It's down to these two trucks if it stays green. Justice again backs it up on the apex, building up the run. Did get a touch bit of damage from that slight scrape before in the side-by-side before. This time electing to be more patient along the top side. 12 to go this time.
And he's going to have to make the move in turns 1 and 2 if he wants to make it work. Of course, we spoke earlier how this track is sort of egg-shaped in a sort of fashion, as turns 3 and 4 are a lot tighter and a lot shorter than turns 1 and 2. It's going to be a lot more difficult to make that move in turn 3 and 4 and hold it on the bottom, as Derek Justice tried to do just a few laps ago. He obviously has the faster truck, but we talked about how passing a truck is a completely different story. You have to be significantly faster. And this Darlington International Raceway in the eNASCAR Truck Series producing some great racing as we almost come inside 10 laps to go.
11 to go at the stripe that time by. Once again, Justice burping the throttle once again. Every time in corner entry and apex, it seems, in this battle, Blake, he's had the check up. This time gets the run on the bottom side. Chance to take the lead in 3.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He's having to check up off the exit of 2 when he would have a huge run. But now Justice watching up the racetrack, but Norton going to be able to hold on. But now you look forward, we'll approach 10 laps to go here from Darlington, and you got lap traffic just in front of you here. They'll have to navigate it smartly, but now Justice getting higher, trying to get a huge run off of 2. Norton getting loose. It naturally checks Justice up. That halts his momentum, so Norton being loose is almost a gift here at Darlington, trying to hold off Derek Justice.
Not making it easy, and the clouds are starting to cover the racetrack. It's been mostly sunny in a mostly cloudy sky, but Justice wants to try and come to the lead. Justice on the bottom in 1 and 2. Again, Norton not backing down. Again, Justice forced to back off, heading to corner exit.
As they come down the back straightaway, they're going to be almost side by side, but Derek Justice can't quite make it work there. We were talking that he has to make the move in turns 1 and 2 as it's the wider corner. He had it that time, couldn't quite make it. But one thing that I'm going to be looking at is that 32 truck just up ahead of our leaders. That could shake up the battle for the lead, as then they have to race around a lap truck, as we just came to 9 laps to go.
Now it's 8 as Justice again up to the wall. Dead even lines. It's Stephen Wilson who's the lap traffic into the Total Advantage Motorsport truck in 21st spot. Question is, how much of a factor will that machine be as you take a look?
There you see the battle right behind them, and Wilson going to do the courteous thing and let these guys race it out. 7 laps to go now for Will Norton, holding on to the high side like his life depends on it, making it as difficult as possible for Derek Justice to try and get a run. He'll try to do it in the GameStop Toyota out of 2, but right now Norton still checking him up just enough to hang on.
Again, Justice now trying to cool down the tires. Norton nearly scrapes the wall. Again, a wiggle from Justice, nearly scrapes the exit of turn 4. Still single file, 6 to go with the stripe. Next traffic up is 10 truck lines ahead is Femi Olot.
And that could provide an issue again as these trucks are still bumper to bumper. Derek Justice trying to make the moves. Will Norton taking away the outside line. He's playing it smart. He knows that the outside is the preferred lane here on older tires. He keeps going up to the outside, not giving Derek Justice the lane he wants, and he is still in the lead as we're coming to get 5 laps to go.
Coming to take 5 to go this time by Derek Justice's heart rate about a solid 145 as he tries to move by Will Norton, looking, clawing for a lane to get on by, but he hasn't been able to do it. Norton able to hold the block once again off of 2.
The high five coming from the flag man last time. Justice again was the quicker truck out of the 2. Just again hasn't been able to build up the run quite yet. Again backed it up on Apex. Again builds up the run. Poking underneath. 4 to go. To the bottom side. Derek Justice. Side by side with Norton. Again backs up the corner on turn 1 as he goes back single file.
Working their way out of turn 2 this time. They're going to be single file. Yet again, down the back straightaway as these 2 trucks scream down the back straightaway. It's going to be a great race here for the last 4 laps. Coming to 3, we might see Derek Justice put the bumper to him. We'll have to see. Is now coming to 3 laps to go.
You have to remember, this is Road to Pro. You need points. As much as Derek Justice wants and has a truck that is capable of winning this race, you have to think big picture. And right now, he's still trying to get a run on Norton, but now Justice is loose off of 2.
Did he burn up the fuel goods in the tires? Already lost a few truck lengths. Old Lot has now been reeled in by the leaders as well in his damaged number 15 truck, quickly moving to the bottom of the racetrack. 2 to go, peace sign from the stand.
2 laps to go, and this is amazing racing as we get the popsicle sticks. As now Will Norton going to be on the point as he has been the past 20 to 30 laps here. He's been staring in that mirror at Derek Justice, and for a second there it was getting smaller, but now Derek Justice getting bigger in the mirror of Will Norton.
As they'll come around 3 and 4, they'll see the white flag in the air, this time by Derek Justice all over the back bumper of the Nexus Esports Toyota. He has one more chance to do it as they head into 1 and 2 for the final time.
Off into 1 and 2, Justice burps it again. One last shot to try and build this up. Down the back straightaway, blocked by Norton. Big bubble by Justice, able to hold on to the final set of corners. Will Norton in the 25 machine for Nexus Esports. Going to win it at Darlington. What a finish. What a run.
Justin, I don't think you can overstate. I don't think there was one person other than Will Norton himself that believed that he could hold off Derek Justice and how fast that truck was over the long run. But despite slipping and sliding, running right along the edge of chaos, Will Norton puts it on the high side and is able to hold off a hard-charging GameStop Toyota. And Will Norton, representing Nexus Esports, makes it a sweep of the front row. He takes the pole, and he'll take the checkered flag as well as he'll come to the front stretch. Do some burnouts, Will.
And what a good job. And keep in mind, give credit to Derek Justice. He kept it clean, Ricky, that entire battle.
Yeah, great clean battle, and that's what you love to see at a place like Darlington. And with these caliber of drivers, these guys are so good that they can run that hard for that many laps, as of course they were bumper to bumper for the last 15 or so laps and ran clean the whole entire time. That's the kind of racing that we love to cover here on Podium Esports.
So Will Norton from the pole holds on to the bitter end over Derek Justice in a thrilling battle to take home the victory for Nexus in Road to Pro action. Derek Justice finished in second, rallied his way from 17th in the starting grid. Caden Honeycutt finished third, Justin Lisenby finishing in fourth. Adam Gillen, Jake Matheson rounding up the top 6. Mercurio comes home with the P7. Bulos, Freinage, and Bose round out the top 10, Blake.
And there were a lot of drivers in here who had very noteworthy runs, Justin, but we were just hypnotized by this battle for the lead that took place over about a 30 or 40 lap span. So, of course, we want to highlight these guys as well as what Norton and Justice were able to do for the win. Hosevar brings it home in 11th, Dylan Jones in 12th. How about Casey Tucker? I feel like we say it every time he comes out here. 32nd up to 13th. A solid run for the Slip Angle Motorsports entry. Jarrett Liebert in 14th. Anthony Burrows brings it home 15th. After trying to short pit, Brian Blackford is able to hold on for 16th. Garrett Maines falls back to 17th. Boyd Hogan in 18th. Last car on the lead lap was Blake Neer in 19th. And rounding out the top 20, Justin, is Femi Olak.
Olak able to be the first driver 1 lap down. Wilson 21st, his teammate Kuhn in 22nd after missing the pit boxes from the top 10. Trey Lapsevich recovered from early incidents to get to 23rd. Doucette, a rough race, finishes in 24th. Hall 25th. LaPrade, Strauss, DeJohn with Bias and Nichols rounding out the top 30. Lopez, a DNF as well, unfortunate for him in 31st, and Roper, the first one out, 96 laps down. That's a look at your running order top to bottom tonight for eNASCAR Road to Pro action here at Darlington. And I think a very excited driver from Victory Lane is all set to go. Will Norton able to hold on after pulling off the undercut and holding off the fiercely charging Derek Justice. Will, how does it feel to win at Darlington?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. We had the first caution, and with tire sets, that kind of put a little more strategy, but thankfully we had a lot to work with. And then it started going green, and we pit. I was worried about what would happen with undercutting or staying out longer, because Derek was already past me by the time we were coming to pit stops. And actually, no, strategy didn't come into play for me because I ran out of fuel. But I undercut Derek. I had about 2.5-3 seconds on him, and I just had to hold. All I could do was hold him off. He had the speed over me long run, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I was going to say what was going through mine throughout that entire battle with how difficult it was, because several times he did poke to the inside, but kept it clean that entire fight for 20 laps.
Everything, I was super tense for the last run, especially when he was catching me, and I was messing up a little bit, especially seeing him catch me like a 1/10 and a half of a lap. And he finally got to me, and that's when I started just being more consistent, and I was lucky enough to hold him off.
Now, overall, what does this victory mean for you and your team after such a hard-fought race and what has been a hard-fought championship fight so far to get into the top 20 in a stellar way, mind you, to begin the second half of the campaign?
It's amazing because after starting Charlotte, I had a really bad streak of just not executing, having the wrong setup, so on and so forth. And I had last at Charlotte and outside top 15 at Michigan, and I don't even remember what the last track is, I'm forgetting, but it means a lot. Team was struggling overall for the last few races, and at least in top split, but finally got it together this race, and we did really good, I feel.
Next race is at Dover. Your thoughts real quick?
Looking forward to it. It's another one of my better tracks, I feel. So I don't know. All I really say is I'm looking forward to it. We put in a lot of time each week. Well, more so my teammates do, but they do a lot, and it really pays off.
Who do you want to thank for being a part of this victory tonight?
Gotta thank my team, Nexus Esports. They put so much time into working on these setups, and endless amount of time, really. Gotta thank Robert Miller, Jacob Hall, James Wenzel, Jarrett Liebert, and Zach Hudson, and anyone else I might be forgetting off the top of my head.
Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations. Heck of a battle. Heck of a finish to this one.
Thank you.
That was Will Norton coming away with the victory tonight. What was a hard-fought performance, a team won 3, but Blake McCandless is standing by with one of the other big storylines of the night. The fastest driver of the long run all evening, Derek Justice.
Well, Derek, it brought back a lot of memories for me personally to see that GameStop Toyota that you run out there. And I don't think anything kind of brought me back to the old days of running at BP and running trucks against each other than not only seeing you battle for the lead, but seeing you battling and doing it cleanly, which is one of your mainstays. But what did you think you needed to get around Will there? Because obviously you had a fast GameStop Toyota all night. What more did you need to try and make that winning move to get around Will Norton?
I think what I needed was maybe about 5 more laps because that's where the car really felt really good, or truck, excuse me. But it's just so hard to pass here, and like I said, to do it cleanly, I pride myself to being one of the cleanest drivers out there. Like I said, I'm gonna apologize to Cody Bias earlier in that race, man, and it was a big old checkup, and I was about to get run over, and we all just checked up on the turn 3. So Cody Bias, I'm sorry, man, but you get around Will, and man, it's so hard. Like I said, they're not doing dirty, and I always get guilty when I'm going wreck somebody for a win, because that's not how I race. So
I think anybody that's raced around you for the number of the years that I have, or any sim racer out here, knows that there's nobody that really tries to do it the right way more than you. But obviously, as much as it may sting to not end up in victory lane tonight, definitely can't be disappointed with the second place run. You've kind of charged your way up into the top 20 with the drop week in the point standings, and obviously a second place run here in top split. That's no small feat, and it does a lot in the standings.
Oh yeah, for sure. I didn't think this Darlington will be one of my strong suits, but like I said, my team worked, and North Force worked very hard with the preparation of this race, as always. And like I said, we're going to do it again here in 2 weeks at Dover. So I think what we need to work on the most as a team for North Force Racing is our qualifying trend. Qualifying's not too well right now. We got to figure something out there. But other than that, I think our race pace is pretty good. And hopefully, if we start in the back again, we'll charge up to the front and maybe get a win at Dover.
To be an occurrence every 2 weeks that North Force is able to charge your way, especially on the long runs. You got plenty of them tonight to be fast. But I'll hand you the mic one more time, Derek, and go ahead and give a shout out to anybody else that got you up here for P2.
Yeah, big shout out to Craig Meyer. He's the guy. I started sim racing 16 years ago in R2003, and that paint scheme was my very first paint scheme I ever driven in NASCAR Racing 2003. So he pretty much made a replica of it for iRacing tonight. So shout out to Craig Meyer, fantastic paint job. Shout out North Force Racing, Buck Kicker, and my Twitch chat. My Twitch chat's great, and shout out for, of course, y'all Podium putting on a great broadcast as always.
Say I know Twitch had to be loving. I mean, God, I think you were pulling about 400 people in there earlier, so it's good to see all the support you're getting for these Road to Pro races, and obviously because you're able to bring it up here and run up front. But a great race tonight, and I think this is just going to be a common occurrence. We'll be seeing you up here more towards the second half of this season.
So thank you, Blake.
Justice, he brings it home second in his throwback GameStop Toyota, throwing back to the old NR 2003 days where Derek Justice got his start. We have another one to talk for you right here. Ricky Springer is caught up with our third place finisher, also a Nexus Esports driver. It's Caden Honeycutt.
Caden Honeycutt standing with me right now. Caden, you finished where you started in the third position. Was there a little bit more you could have had out of the truck to maybe get up there and fight with Will Norton or Derek Justice, or just did not have that long run speed that they had?
I really put myself behind when I wore out the right front a little too much, and Will had like 15% more right front than me when we stopped, so that explains why I lost so much time. Yeah, he had a 3 second, I think he came out to about a 4 second gap in front of me, and I pretty much maintained that, and then I started making a little bit of mistakes, and I kind of over adjusted on the car, kind of went over on track temp, just kind of just seeing what the truck had. I definitely did go a little bit too far. I think that's what ended up being too much of a loose side of the truck. But other than that, I mean, I can really take the points. I really take third any day right now, especially in the position I'm in. But congrats to Will. He was definitely the fastest driver out of our team. He worked very hard. I know Derek had a really fast long run car, so it's congrats to Will, and yeah, we just worked really hard over at Nexus, and we got a very good finish. Most of our team got in the top 10, so very good day out of it.
Yeah, and a great run for everybody on your team tonight, as you were just talking about. One thing I did want to ask you, you and Adam Gilliland had a pretty tight battle after the cycle of pit stops there. Do you think that could have played into maybe your tire management there, having to race Adam so hard to stay in front of him?
It could. It definitely is a little bit of a hard battle to sort it out, and definitely it's come down to the end of the race. Every position matters. Definitely running the bottom in 3 and 4 kind of hurts your tires. Staying up towards the wall all the way in 1 and 2 and having to scrub the right front on exit just to not pound down the fence is definitely a little bit difficult. But other than that, I mean, it's still tire management, and the way the truck has to handle wasn't the way it's supposed to handle, so tires didn't really matter the way it ended up. But still, yeah, we still had a good finish out of it and very happy about it, and we'll just move on to Dover and go get them there.
Yeah, and you should have some momentum going in there, and I'll hand you the mic now. And is there anybody you'd like to thank or speak about here for this good finish tonight?
Thank Nexus Esports for a great truck tonight. We worked very hard. Thank you, Jacob, Robert Miller, everybody on our team that works very hard. Thank you to FOJ, Friends of Jackman Foundation, for letting me support them and run their scheme and throwing them out there. They are a very good foundation. You go to FOJ.com to find out more. And also thank you to Raceface Brand Development, Rod Wortham, everybody over there at Raceface for their support as well. Me doing this in sim racing, very, very big deal. Yeah, and just also thanks Mom and Dad for everything they've done. And yeah, we'll just move on to Dover, and great finish and great points. So we'll take it and move on.
All right, and thank you, Caden Honeycutt. That was finishing in the 3rd spot tonight, and I'll hand it back over to you, Justin Prince, to close it out for us.
Yes, indeed, a very thrilling race tonight and a very good performance if you're a fan of Nexus Esports. 1, 3, 4, 6, along with P8 tonight in this race. But these drivers had a hard-fought battle throughout tonight's action and a hard-fought victory for Will Norton. This concludes tonight's action from Podium Esports. Next time this series hits the track is at Dover International Speedway on July the 7th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. 170 laps is the distance for that race. Be sure to tune in here on Podium Esports. But for Gary Sexton and John Theodore at Podium Esports, for our producers tonight, in Ryan Bauer, along with Cisco Scaramuza, and one of my partners in the booth tonight, in Ricky Spreer and Blake McCandless, I'm Justin Prince, saying so long. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast. We will see you at Dover.